This video is brought to you by BlueCert. BlueCert is a trusted provider for AI-related certifications designed to validate expertise in machine learning, data science, NLP, AI security, and more. You can go to bluecert.org to take a look at all of their offerings. You can explore the certifications. Here we have certifications on machine learning, AI healthcare, AI in finance, natural language processing, and many more. If I go to machine learning, you can see the different potential roles that are available for machine learning as developers and even different paths that are available. And this provides you with AI-focused specialization, flexible online exams, and also employer recognition. You can also check out some of the sample multiple choice questions on that category. If you're looking for certification for machine learning or AI related fields, check out bluecert.org. Now, one of the things that you may have noticed is when we are returning from a function, whether that function was an add function or a double function, we were always returning a single value. But how can we return multiple values from a function? Let's create a function over here, and we will call it airport name and code. So this function is supposed to return you the airport name and the code for that airport. So if I try this approach of, well, if I say the airport name is IAH, and then I do another return statement, which is, I'll say, intercontinental airport, you can already see that the second return statement is a little bit faded out. And it's faded out because a function, once it encounters a return statement, it is going to ignore the other lines of code that comes after it. And we have seen that before also when I was writing the return statement, and after that all the print statements, they were kind of getting ignored. So we have already seen that. So now the question becomes like, well, if we cannot do two return statements, how can we return both the airport name and the airport code? And one of the ways that you can return, and there are multiple, is to use another data type apart from string, apart from integer and float and boolean, which is called tuple. Tuple simply means it can have multiple values. Now I can say over here, Hobby Airport, which is the airport in Houston, and the code is HOU. So this is a tuple that we are returning. So we're returning two values. Now, how do you call this function? Well, you call this function just by calling a normal function. But this function does return you two values, and you need to get access to both of those values, right? So you go over here, and if I put something over here, let's say if I put over here A, right, and print out the value A, and I run this, you can see that it prints out the whole thing, like Hobby Airport and HOU. So it's basically returning you a tuple, because that's what we're returning right there. But I want to put the name of the airport in a different variable, and I want to put the code of the airport in a different variable. Then I can use the syntax where I provide airport code. Obviously, you can use any variable name that you want, or this is airport name, sorry, and then the airport code. And the reason that I'm saying airport name first is because the name is the first one being returned, and airport code is the second one because it is the second one. And now I can go over here and print out the values. So now airport name will contain the name of the airport, and the airport code will contain the code of the airport. So if I run this, you can see airport name is Hobby Airport and airport code is HOU. So this is how you actually do this stuff. All right, so you can return multiple values. Now, another thing is sometimes your function will have arguments, but you want to keep those arguments as optional. Optional means that you can pass those arguments, but if you don't wish, you can also ignore. So how do we do that? Well, we can say greet with optional. I mean, this is just a name, by the way. I mean, you can put any name you want. I'm just writing the name this way so that it's easier for you to understand. So it has an argument called name you have to pass in and an age. And let's just say over here, we'll print out the name and the age. So it's a very simple function that simply prints out the name and the age. And how do we call the function? Well, we call this function using the name, passing in some sort of a name, and passing in some sort of an age. But then later we found out that, you know what? If you don't want to pass in the age, that's okay. Don't pass in. And we'll just use age with a default value. But if I remove 29 over here, you can already see these curly lines, which are indicating that, hey, you're missing, you're missing age. You're not passing in the age. In order to use optional arguments, optional parameters, you can go to your function and put the optional argument over here. So now this, when we're assigning the value to the age and we're assigning the value 18, this means that if you don't pass in age, the value of age will automatically becomes 18. But if you do pass in age, then the value will be whatever you're passing. So you can see right now, if I print it out, the name is Steven and the age is 18, even though I'm not really passing in the age. See that? In the line number 51, I'm not passing age, but it's using the default value of the age, which is 18. But I can, if I want to, I can go over here and pass in the age. I can say 45. And now you can see that the default value is not used because I am passing 45, so it just uses 45 as a value. All right, so that's the difference between using optional value versus not using optional values. Okay, so that is good. I mean, we have learned about the function now. In the next lecture, we'll be learning about, we'll do the activity even and odd, but we'll try to create a function to do that.